You are 7 years old. Your mother's hands, rough from grinding maize on a volcanic stone metate, grip your shoulders with a ferocity that will leave small fingertip-shaped bruises. She pulls you close in the doorway of your family's adobe hut, a single-room structure of sun-dried brick and thatched Maggie leaves, while outside the air shrieks with the sound of conch shell trumpets, clay death whistles, shaped like flayed human faces, and the pounding of 1,000 bare feet against packed earth. The smell hits you first. Copal incense so thick it coats your throat like oil, the metallic tang of freshly spilled blood, and the roasted meat sweetness of burning human hearts on the temple braziers. The Mexica have come. They march through your conquered village in a column of jaguar skin banners and obsidian-tipped spears, their bodies painted black and ochre, their noses and ears plugged with gold and jade ornaments that glint like predatory eyes in the torchlight. Your father is already dead, captured in the raid, his chest opened with a flint knife on the pyramid of Huitzilopochtli, his still-beating heart raised to the sun. You watch from behind a stack of firewood, too terrified to scream. Now the warrior sees you. A scar-faced man in a coyote head helmet drags you from your mother's arms, her nails raking your skin, her screams swallowed by the cacophony. You are thrown into a coffle with 20 other children, a rope of twisted agave fiber biting into your neck. You will be marched to Tenochtitlan, the great city on the lake, where the temples rise from the water like stone mountains and the canals run red with sacrifice. You are not a victim. You are a captive, a minor tribute from a conquered altipetal, and you are about to enter a world so rigidly hierarchical, so cosmic in its brutality, that your entire existence will be defined by how well you climb, how well you kill, and how well you die. This is Level 1. Level 1. The Cacatli. Tenochtitlan assaults every sense you possess. The city is an impossible marvel built on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, connected to the mainland by 3 massive causeways that pulse with canoe traffic, porters bent under loads of cacao and cotton, and the constant murmur of Nahuatl voices haggling, praying, and gossiping. The air is a layered perfume, the alkaline reek of the lake water, the smoke of 100,000 cooking fires, the cloying sweetness of marigolds piled at temple steps, and underneath it all, the permanent, inescapable odor of death from the skull rack, the Tzompantli, where thousands of human heads are threaded onto wooden poles, their eye sockets hollowed by birds, their jaws hanging slack in eternal grimaces. You are now a Tlacatli, a slave, property of the noble warrior who captured your village. You are given a new name, Sentlal, meaning one who was taken. Your old name is never spoken again. Your life is a brutal education in Aztec society. You learn that the world is a pyramid, vertical and absolute. At the very bottom are you and those like you, captives, criminals and debt slaves, destined for labor or sacrifice depending on the whim of your master. You work from before dawn until after dusk, hauling water from the aqueduct, grinding maize on the metate until your palms blister, carrying tribute loads of quetzal feathers and jade beads to the palace of the Huitzilopochtli, the great speaker, the emperor himself. You glimpse him once, Moctezuma II, a man in a cloak of iridescent green feathers, sitting on a throne of carved obsidian, eating from golden plates while musicians played clay flutes shaped like skulls. His sandaled feet never touched the ground. Attendants lay woven mats before every step he takes. You look away immediately because looking a noble in the eye is punishable by death. At night, you sleep on a reed mat in the slave quarters, a low adobe structure attached to your master's compound. The other slaves whisper stories. The gods made this world from the bones of the last world, and they demand blood to keep the sun moving. Without sacrifice, the 5th sun will die, and the stars will fall, and the earth will be swallowed by Tzitzimitl, the star demons of the void. You listen with wide, terrified eyes. You don't yet understand that this mythology is a cosmic engine that requires human fuel, and that you are that fuel, but you learn quickly. The day a fellow slave is dragged to the temple for some minor infraction, talking back a stolen tortilla. You hear his screams echoing across the city for 40 minutes. They cut out his heart on the pyramid's summit, and his body tumbles down the 114 steps, leaving a glistening red trail on the white limestone. You don't eat that night. You don't sleep either. Level 2, the commoner, Masholten, Fate intervenes. Your master, the warrior, dies in a flower war, the Xochitl, the ritual conflict waged specifically to capture sacrificial victims, felled by an obsidian-edged maquahuitl that opens his skull like a split gourd. In a quirk of Aztec law, his death grants you a conditional freedom. You are no longer a slave, you are now Masiwilton, a commoner, a free man within the Kalpali, the neighborhood district. The Kalpali is your world, a cluster of adobe homes around a central courtyard, each family unit working a communal plot of chinampa, the floating gardens, artificial islands built from woven reeds and lakebed mud anchored by willow trees. Your plot is 20 yards long, 6 wide, and it grows maize, beans, and squash, the three sisters that feed the empire. The mud squelches between your toes as you plant, a cool, life-giving sensation. And for the first time since your capture, you feel something like hope. As a commoner, you have rights and obligations. You must pay tribute to the empire. A third of your crop, cotton mantles, a quota of labor days on public works. You must serve in the army when called, carrying supplies and fighting as a basic foot soldier. You have no education in the Kamikak, the noble school, but you are taught the basics of Aztec law at the local Telpocali, the commoner's house of youth, where old warriors teach you to fight with a sling and a wooden club studded with obsidian shards. You learn to be proud of your station, not resentful. The empire's propaganda is absolute, woven into every prayer, every festival, every meal. You learn that commoners are the flesh of the empire, the muscle that feeds and builds, and that without you, the sun itself would starve. You marry. Her name is Xochitl, Flower, a girl from 3 Kopali over with hair that smells of copal and hands that never stop working. Your wedding is a 4-day feast with pulque, fermented agave sap thick and sour, flowing freely, and the elders binding your mantles together in a symbolic knot. You build your own hut with the help of your neighbors, its walls plastered with a mix of lime and crushed shell that gleams in the lake light. You have a son. The midwife who delivers him chants to Chalchitlikyu, the goddess of water and childbirth, and buries the umbilical cord in the chinampa soil. A boy belongs to the land and the spear. You hold him in your calloused hands, this tiny, brown, squirming thing, and you feel a love so fierce it terrifies you. But the terror of the empire is ever present. The tribute demands increase. A drought shrivels the maize. You see your neighbors, good men, dragged to the temple for failing to meet quotas. Your son falls ill with a fever that leaves him shivering and delirious. The Huitzilopochtli, the healer, comes with her bundles of medicinal herbs, epizote for the stomach, piscidal tobacco for the spirit, and chants over his tiny body for 3 days. On the 4th day, the fever breaks. You weep into your wife's shoulder. You have been spared, this time. But the empire is hungry, and it will always be hungry. Level 3, the warrior novice. Your son grows. At 14, he enters the Telpocali for formal warrior training. You watch from the edge of the courtyard as the old veteran, a one-eyed man with a scar that bisects his face like a lightning bolt, thrusts a wooden makuahudal into your son's hands. Your chest tightens with pride and dread. You know what comes next. The training is brutal. Forced marches across the causeways, carrying stones, mock combat with clubs that leave bruises and broken bones, lessons in tracking and ambush. The boys are taught to sing war hymns to Huitzilopochtli, the hummingbird of the left, the god of war and the sun. They are taught that death in battle is the most glorious fate, that warriors who die ascend to the eastern sky to accompany the sun on its daily journey, returning after 4 years as hummingbirds to sip nectar from the flowers of this world. Your son believes this with every fiber of his being. You believe it too, or you try to. At 16, your son is called to his first campaign, a flower war against the Tlaxcalans, the unconquered nation to the east. The army departs Tenochtitlan at dawn, a river of feathered warriors, jaguar priests, and commoner porters, the drums beating a rhythm that syncs with your heartbeat. Your son returns 2 months later, but he is not the boy who left. He is now a Yauquisque, a proven warrior, because he has taken his first captive. The captive is a Tlaxcalan boy, maybe 15, his wrists bound with rope, his face blank with shock. Your son's right cheek is freshly scarred, a deliberate cut to show he has bled for the empire. The Kalpoli throws a feast, pulque flowing, the elders praising your son's courage. You embrace him and your hands come away sticky with dried blood. Not his, but the captive's. You smile for the celebration, but later that night, behind the hut, you vomit into the canal. The captive is sacrificed the next day, your son participating in the ceremony as a sign of his new status. You don't attend. You hear the death whistle shriek from your chinampa, and you keep hoeing, your jaw clenched so tight your teeth ache. Level 4, the Jaguar Warrior, Ossipili. Years pass. Your son distinguishes himself in battle after battle. He takes 4 captives, then 5, then 7. By the time he is 25, he has taken more than a dozen, including 2 enemy captains, feats that earn him entry into the most elite military order in the empire. The Ossipili, the Jaguar Warriors. The investiture ceremony is held in the great temple, the Templo Mayor, before the emperor himself. Your son is painted from head to toe in ocelotl pigment, black rosettes on a tawny yellow ground, and fitted with a jaguar skin helmet, the animal's snarling face framing his own, its fangs jutting above his eyes. He is given a tekiwawal, a captain's obsidian-edged spear, its blade black as night. He is a walking god of death. As a Jaguar Warrior, your son is granted privileges beyond your imagination. He receives a palace in the noble district, with inner courtyards and a steam bath. He is given tribute from conquered provinces: cacao, cotton, quetzal feathers, jade beads. He has a harem of minor wives, though his primary wife, a noblewoman, manages the household with iron authority. He wears gold earrings and lip plugs of polished obsidian. When he walks down the street, commoners lower their eyes and step aside. He is now a member of the Pepilton class, the nobility, and his children will be nobles by birth. Your grandson will never have to swing a hoe. The upward mobility is staggering. The price, however, is due. Your son's body is a map of violence. His left ear is missing, sheared off by a makuahoodle. 3 of his toes were amputated after a canoe ambush on Lake Texcoco ended with his foot caught in a reed trap. He limps. He drinks too much pulque, and when he's drunk, he talks about the captives. Not the ones who fought, the ones who didn't. The women, the children. The things he did in the name of Huitzilopochtli that he cannot undo. You listen, your own hands trembling. You see your son, the ferocious predator, and you also see the 7-year-old boy who cried when your dog died. The 2 images will not resolve. They split your heart like a flint knife. Level 5, the Eagle Warrior. Your son, now in his 30s, achieves the ultimate martial honor. Induction into the Kuopili, the Eagle Warriors, the highest military order, equal in rank to the Jaguars, but associated with the sun's zenith, the moment of greatest light and power. His helmet is an eagle's head, its beak curving over his forehead, real feathers fanning out behind. His insignia is the Quatli, the eagle, the devourer of hearts, the symbol of Huitzilopochtli himself. He commands a squadron of 400 warriors, a Zantli, in the Empire's campaigns against the Tarascans to the west, a rival empire that threatens Mexica expansion. You are old now, your hair white as salt, your back curved from decades of chinampa labor. Your son invites you to his palace for a great feast. You enter the compound through a carved stone gate, past murals depicting the conquests of the emperor, painted in vibrant reds and blues. Servants, slaves, you note, and your stomach twists, serve you roasted turkey with chilmali sauce, maize cakes, and a foaming cup of chocolate, a drink reserved for nobles. Your son sits at the head of the table in his eagle regalia, laughing with other captains, discussing the next campaign against the Tarascans. He looks right through you. When you try to speak to him about your wife, she is ill, a cough that won't leave. He nods absently and waves to a servant for more chocolate. You are proud of everything he has become. You also hate him, a little, in a way you will never admit. The feast is interrupted by news. The Tarascans have attacked a border garrison. Your son stands, his eyes alight with something you recognize but cannot name, and he kisses his wife and children and strides out into the night, his eagle feather cloak vanishing into the torchlight. You never see him alive again. Level 6, the High Priest, Tepixki. The news of your son's death arrives 3 months later. He fell in battle against the Tarascans, cut down by a copper axe. The Tarascans use metal, a technology the Mexica never mastered, and his body was carried from the field by his men. He died a hero's death, which means he joins the sun in its journey across the sky. You are given his eagle helmet as a keepsake, the feathers still matted with dried blood. You hold it in your lap, staring at the empty eye sockets, and you feel nothing. The grief is too large to feel. You don't cry. You haven't cried since you were 7 years old. Your status as the father of a fallen eagle warrior elevates you. You are invited to join the priesthood, a rare honor for a commoner. You accept, because what else is there? You enter the Kalmakak as an elderly novitiate, learning to read the pictographic codices, to chant the hymns of the gods, to interpret the 260-day Tonopahuali calendar. You learn that the world is vastly more complex than you knew. The Aztec pantheon contains hundreds of gods, each with specific domains, each demanding specific rituals. The cosmos is a fragile mechanism, balanced between order and chaos, and the priesthood is the maintenance crew. The training takes years, but you have time. Your wife has died of her cough. Your chinampa is farmed by a nephew. You have nothing but the gods. At the age of 62, you are ordained as a tepixqui, a full priest of Huitzilopochtli. Your body is painted black from head to toe, the color of the divine, and your long, matted hair, unwashed and uncut for years, hangs down your back, clotted with sacrificial blood. You are given obsidian knives, a ceremonial brazier, and a staff topped with a human skull. The skull belonged to a previous priest, a man who served for 40 years. You touch it sometimes, wondering if it will talk to you. It doesn't. But the gods do, in dreams. Your first sacrifice is a Tlaxcalan captain, a man of about 40, captured in the latest flower war. He is painted blue, the color of the victim, and led up the 114 steps of the Templo Mayor, the pyramid that dominates Tenochtitlan, its twin shrines to Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc visible from every corner of the city. The stairs are so steep the priests ahead of you seem to be climbing into the sky itself. At the summit, you hold the man's left leg while 4 other priests grip his limbs, splaying him backward over the convex altar stone. The high priest raises the tech paddle, the flint knife, its edge sharper than steel, and plunges it into the man's chest below the sternum. The cut is precise. You've seen it 1,000 times, but never this close. The blood sprays hot across your face, a baptism. The high priest reaches into the chest cavity, severs the arteries, and pulls out the heart, still beating, a purple-red fist of muscle that steams in the morning air. He raises it to the sun. The body is rolled down the steps, tumbling, the sound of bones on stone like a drum roll. You watch it fall, you feel nothing. You are now a killer for the gods. Level 7. The High Priest of Huitzilopochtli. Decades pass in the temple, your body fails, but your reputation grows. You have presided over hundreds of sacrifices, your hands permanently stained a faint rust color beneath the nails. You have studied the codices until you can recite the history of the Mexica migration from Aztlan, the legendary homeland, back 7 generations. You know the secret names of Huitzilopochtli, the names that cannot be spoken, the names that, if uttered correctly, can compel the god to manifest. You know the prophecy of the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, and his promised return from the eastern sea, a prophecy that has been whispered for centuries and always dismissed. You are now the Huitzilopochtli, the old god, the highest priest of the capital, a member of the emperor's inner council. Your chambers are in the temple complex itself, a suite of rooms behind the shrine, furnished with jaguar skin rugs and gold-plated incense burners. When you walk through the streets, people prostrate themselves. You are carried in a palanquin by 4 slaves. You eat the finest turkey, the sweetest chocolate, the most delicate amaranth cakes. You are, in effect, the second most powerful man in the empire, because you control the calendar that dictates when wars are fought, when sacrifices are held, and when the world is deemed safe for another 52-year cycle. The emperor defers to you in matters of ritual. When he speaks to you, his voice is respectful. You are feared, but the omens have begun. Strange things, a comet with 3 tails visible for a full year, the waters of Lake Texcoco boiling for no reason, a temple catching fire and burning despite the rain. A woman in the market heard wailing, "My children, where will I take you?" in a voice that was not her own. You consult the codices and the prophecies, your hands trembling on the deerskin pages. The signs point to the return of Quetzalcoatl, but that cannot be possible. Quetzalcoatl was a god, a myth, a story, but the signs do not lie. The emperor calls an emergency council, and you sit in a dark room with Moctezuma himself, the emperor's face gaunt with fear, the flickering torchlight making his golden earrings look like drops of molten metal. "What do the gods say?" he asks. You answer honestly, the gods are silent. The silence is the worst omen of all. Level 8, the imperial advisor. Moctezuma, in desperation, elevates you to the position of Cihuacuatl, the woman snake, a misleading name for the empire's chief internal administrator. You are now the second in command of the entire Aztec state, responsible for tribute collection, judicial rulings, and the management of the capital's population of 200,000 souls. Your palace is adjacent to the imperial palace, connected by a private passage so you and the emperor can confer without being seen. Your authority is absolute within the city, only the emperor outranks you. You are given a serpent-shaped scepter of solid gold, coiled and fanged, a symbol of the power that runs through the empire like venom through a vein. You use your power at first to maintain order. The omens are terrifying, but the empire must function. You oversee the collection of 7,000 tons of maize in tribute from the provinces. You adjudicate disputes between noble houses, your judgments final and unappealable. You condemn criminals to the altar or to slavery. Your hands, already stained, now sign death warrants with a casual flick of a stylus. The moral weight is crushing, but you've learned to ignore crushing weight. The machine must run. The news comes in the year 1 read. Strange vessels have been sighted off the coast, floating mountains with white wings. Men have come ashore, pale-skinned, bearded, riding animals like giant deer. They carry sticks that spit thunder and lightning. The descriptions filter back to Tenochtitlan through a chain of runners, each detail more impossible than the last. Moctezuma calls you to his chamber, and you find the emperor weeping. He believes these strangers are Quetzalcoatl and his retinue, Return from the eastern sea as the prophecy foretold. You counsel caution, but your own heart is ice. You've read the prophecy. You know what it says. When Quetzalcoatl returns, the fifth sun ends. The world ends. Everything you've built, sacrificed, and killed for ends. The strangers march inland. Their leader is a man named Cortez. The emperor sends envoys with gifts. Gold, silver, a ceremonial mask of turquoise mosaic, hoping to appease the gods. Cortez accepts the gifts and keeps marching. He allies with the Tlaxcalans, the empire's ancient enemies. You realize, with a clarity that is almost peaceful, that the machine is breaking. Level 9. The Last Emperor's Shadow. Moctezuma is captured. The Spanish, aided by their Tlaxcalan allies, seize the emperor in his own palace, holding him hostage in a gilded cage. You are the shadow now, the Cihuacoatl, who must run the empire while the great speaker is a prisoner. The streets of Tenochtitlan are a powder keg. The commoners, enraged by Moctezuma's perceived weakness, throw stones at the palace. The Spanish fire their arquebuses, the noise like the sky cracking open. The smell of gunpowder, a foreign acrid chemical stench, mingles with the familiar copal incense and blood. The city is dying. Moctezuma appears on the palace balcony to calm the crowd. They stone him. He dies 3 days later, whether from the stoning or a Spanish blade, you'll never know. The new emperor, Cuitlahuac, is proclaimed, but he dies of smallpox within 80 days. The invisible killer, the disease the Spanish brought in their lungs and their breath, spreading through the city like a ghost. The bodies pile up in the streets. The canals clog with corpses. The smell of Tenochtitlan is no longer copal and blood. It is the sweet gagging reek of rotting humanity. You are now old, impossibly old, 80 years or more, and you watch the end of your world through rheumy eyes. Cuauhtémoc, the last emperor, a young man with fire in his eyes, takes the throne. He makes you his principal advisor, but there is nothing to advise. The Spanish and their native allies lay siege to the city. The aqueduct is cut. The chinampas are burned. Starvation sets in, then cannibalism. Mothers eating their dead children, warriors eating fallen comrades. You sit in the darkened temple, the fires of Huitzilopochtli's brazier long extinguished, and you wait. The gods are still silent. Perhaps they were always silent. Perhaps the voices you heard in your dreams were just your own. The Spanish breached the city on August 13, 1521. Cuauhtémoc is captured trying to flee by canoe. You are found in the temple, a black-painted, skeletal figure, still clutching your serpent scepter. The Spanish soldiers drag you outside, and you see them for the first time in full daylight. Armored, bearded, sweating in the Mexican heat, their eyes hungry and terrified. One of them, a priest in brown robes, holds up a cross and screams at you in Spanish, a language you do not understand, but you know he is telling you your gods are dead. You look at the cross. You look at the smoking ruins of the Templo Mayor. You drop your scepter in the mud. The fifth sun has set. Level 10, the Survivor. You do not die in the siege. You are too useful. The Spanish, realizing your status and knowledge, keep you alive as an interpreter and a puppet administrator. You are baptized against your will, water poured over your head in the ruined cathedral they are building from the stones of the Templo Mayor. They give you a new name, Diego. You are forced to learn Spanish, a language that feels like gravel in your mouth. You watch as the Spanish dismantle your civilization brick by brick, replacing the pyramids with churches, the codices with Bibles, the gods with saints. The skull rack is torn down, the heads buried in mass graves. The golden ornaments of Huitzilopochtli are melted into ingots and shipped to Spain. You are kept in a small room in the Spanish quarter, fed adequately, consulted occasionally on the old tribute routes so the Spanish can more efficiently extract wealth from the countryside. You comply. You have no fight left. At night, you stare at the wall and you try to remember the face of your mother, taken from you at age 7. You can't. You can remember the smell of her, wood smoke, maize, the faint sweetness of breast milk. But her face is gone, erased by decades of blood and fire. You realize that the empire took everything from you, and then gave you everything, and then took it all away again. You are the last living link to a world that no longer exists. The Spaniards call you El Viejo Diego, Old Diego, and pat you on the head like a pet. You die in your sleep at 87 in a small adobe room within the sound of the cathedral bells that replaced the conch shell trumpets. A Spanish scribe records your death in a margin note. Died, the Indian they called Diego, who was once a great priest of the demons. May God have mercy on his soul. The note is filed in an archive in Seville, forgotten for 400 years.